I hate what people like your client stand for.
We're going to prove once and for all that God is dead.
You're passionate about what you believe. I mean, let's face it, it's why you're in trouble in the first place.
A student asked a question about remarks allegedly made by Jesus, and your answer incorporated Scripture itself.
Yes. What were you thinking, Grace?
Hey guys, welcome to Critic and Fan, and we're here reviewing the new movie God is Not Dead 2. And to be honest, Rob and I have not seen the first movie, which might have been an advantage, I think, because we didn't know what to expect going to this movie. And this story is about a teacher in a school who is trying to teach a class on history, and a student asks her a question, and she answers the student's question with parallels of Jesus and Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. and other historical figures, but the mere fact that she said and talked about Jesus in class is what gets her in trouble with the school board, which eventually leads her into being put on trial. And now we have a big movie about what's really being put on trial here. The woman, Jesus, the whole concept, faith. And so that's what this movie is about. And after watching this movie, it's okay. It's whatever. What do you think, Rob?
I didn't really care for it all that much.
I didn't really care for this movie as much either, really, if I'm being truly honest. If we're going to go into pros for this movie, for sure, this movie is shot well. The acting is not bad, although there are certain characters who just, I mean, you can just kind of tell they're just good looking, and so they're just kind of like, can you just say this line? All right, you're in this movie. And so there were some characters that were like that. You're just like, they had no acting chops really, but I mean, for the most part, it wasn't atrocious, but the acting was okay. It's passable. Another aspect of this movie that I thought was really great was the trial scene. Everything that was surrounding the trial of this lady, I thought was engaging. I thought was very interesting, and that is where I think the rest of the movie kind of falls apart because it focuses on other things that are outside the trial. That I think it kind of loses track of what's the original story that's trying to tell.
Yeah, there was like 5 stories going on at once, and they like resolve one.
There are certain storylines that kind of seem that they really didn't have to be in there. There's a certain character, I can't remember her name, but she's the redhead in the film, and she, like, when you really think about her character, in the beginning you hear that she has cancer. It's like, okay, she has cancer, and then she gets healed from cancer in the very beginning, and then that's how they introduce her, and then the rest of the movie is just her basically just trying to support the woman that's being put on trial, but you realize that she doesn't really bring anything to the story, so really, why is she there? I really feel that if they would have just really stuck on just the woman and her lawyer, and them just really trying to do behind the scenes stuff, how can we win this trial, then I think it would have been a much better and a much more solid movie, because we have 3 or 4 other faith stories that are happening in the background that honestly didn't really need to be in there, and that's kind of what docks this movie down a bit, that there's too much. And this movie does get preachy. This is a Christian movie. It's meant for, the Christian audience, and that's why I think if they would have just aimed it more for I guess you can say the non-believers or the people that don't believe in God or agnostics, whatever, it would probably have been a better movie. Like, for an example, they do this a lot where they'll just be talking to each other, and they'll be like, yeah, I know what you mean, Matthew 3:25. Oh, yeah, well, I know what you mean, John 13:4. And it's just like, they just totally just say random Bible verses that just totally seem out of the blue.
Unless you have the entire Bible memorized, you might not catch some of these.
They do that a lot of times in this movie, and it just, whenever they do that, it just seems very out of place. Although they do that kind of scripture thing once when it's a dramatic moment, and that made sense for that dramatic moment. But when they're just casually talking, just like, just John 3:25, and for just casual conversations, you're like, okay, you don't have to do that. Just all right. And there's product placements in this movie too. There's product placements for Prius all over the movie. Makes me want to buy a Prius now. And there's product placements for like ministers and people that write books. When this trial is happening, we have writers. I think the writer from The Case for Christ, Lee Strobel, I think his name is. He's in this movie. We have another writer. They just have like plugins for these book writers, and they literally say that in this movie. They're like, yeah, I'm Lee Strobel, the author of The Case for Christ, and he mentions like 4 other books. And in case you're interested, that's the book too. I'm like, what? So we're doing product placement for these ministers as well. Product placement for the Newsboys. There's no reason whatsoever why the Newsboys have to be in this movie. And, man, there's so much potential to have a good, solid story, but it just gets so boggled down by these other needless things that didn't need to be in there.
And the bad people in this movie. they're just not good people. That's the only thing they have. There's like they're just bad. They just don't like Christians. The world hates Christians, and I'm like, come on, they don't give anyone else a reason, but other than I hate Christians.
Yeah, there's no depth to the opposition, because the only bad guy really is the lawyer, and for acting, the lawyer did a phenomenal job. I loved whenever he would take the stand and whenever he would talk, because I just liked him playing the bad guy. But there's no oh, you know, my mother died when I prayed to God to try to save her. There's no backstory. Like, he's just bad. And he literally just goes, I just hate Christians. I just hate them. There's no
That was his
reason.
thing. He hates Christians.
Yeah, and so the opposition in this movie is very lacking. And what kind of bugged me too is that all the witnesses were all Christian witnesses, or not witnesses, Christian supporters, and there were only 2 people that were against the Christian lady, but they were her coworkers that just said, "Oh, you know, she just talked about God in the classroom," or like, "Oh, we just have a policy." There's no there's no atheist professor or a scientist or there was really no opposition on the stand to really balance the scale, because it was pretty much just 80% just straight Christian.
Yeah. And this is another thing that I thought was really dumb that no one ever does. They asked this lady about Martin Luther King and how he's a reverend, and she's like, "Oh, that doesn't matter. His religion never mattered. He never mentioned God in anything. He never brought God up in his speeches or his beliefs or anything. He never taught a sermon." And she's like, "As far as I'm concerned, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't Christian." That's basically what she did. And I'm like, no one does that. Not like, what?
Yeah, and another dumb thing is that they have the news people. They have them go like, "Oh, these zealous Christians." Like, they have a broadcaster on the newsstand in her studio, just like, she has like a little graphic on the side of her, just like, "Yeah, these crazy Christians, and yeah, they're just talking about their ideals." And like, do you ever hear CNN or ABC News or any news outlet ever talk like that? I mean, they basically just say, because even with Kim Davis, they were just like, "Oh, you know, with Kim Davis trial in court, you know, for the issue on gay marriage and stuff like that." It wasn't just like, "Oh, the infamous Kim Davis and what she did that was evil, blah blah." So like, just the balance. That's another example of the balance of just, I guess, the opposition wise. It's just they just make these people just bad for no reason, and it's just unrealistic.
Yeah.
I will say though that the way that this trial ends wasn't what I expected. It was kind of a twist, and because most Christian movies normally end with a happy, just like God saves the day, like shining lights flowing through windows and stuff like that. But the way that they approached how they go about this trial at the end was something that wasn't expected. And once again, like I said before, I loved everything about the trial itself. I just wish everything else that was happening outside the trial was as interesting, which it wasn't really.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I feel like this movie is not really... I don't think this really is a movie you should watch in theaters. What do you think?
No, I mean, I watched it in theaters, but I don't think anybody else should. Go ahead and wait till it's on DVD or Netflix or whatever you have, Amazon. Wait till it's on something like that. Then maybe rent it.
Yeah, because I think with a movie theater experience, I mean, it doesn't provide an epic feel, and like I said before, the problems that come with the movie, it just kind of, I don't know, I just kind of felt underwhelmed because there was so much potential to make a good story, and all these different storylines bring it down, and I don't know, I just think you should save your money and wait for it to come to rent, really. And I mean, it's not a terrible movie, but I don't think it's worth spending $12 in the theater for.
Yeah.
Alright guys, that's our quick review for God Is Not Dead 2. What are you guys' thoughts on it? Have you guys seen it already? And if you guys like what you see, follow us on Facebook, as well as we have a new Twitter page. Rob, tell them about that.
Yes, it's at Critic _and _fan.
Follow us on Twitter, and as always, if you guys like what you see here, subscribe to our YouTube channel below.